Hello there C++ enthusiasts, welcome back to my channel. I'm Peculiar, and today we're diving back into the world of C++. So remember that video we did on call by reference? Yeah, seems like it sparked quite the interest, and many of you reached out asking for more examples. Well, you asked, and here we are. But before we jump into it, remember, if you have any questions or need further clarification, feel free to drop me an email at gg.ntehelang@gmail.com. Now, let's get coding. Alright folks, here we'll do a simple C++ program. We're going to prompt the user for their age and then use call by reference to multiply it by 10. Let's dive into the code. Clear what we have here from the online compiler. Declare the variable that will hold the user input, prompt user input, and we will create the function called multiply age by 10. Now to output our age. Do notice that the variable which we're feeding here to output is the same one that is being input here. We did not create another variable to hold the multiplied age, but what we are rather saying is that prompt user input and then the very same input will be outputted. Crazy, right? How is that gonna go about? Now to create this function multiply age by 10, let's create it right here at the top. And now to denote that we did not call this function by value but rather by reference, we will see by this end sign, int and age. What this basically means is that, remember when we passed user age in the main function, we said multiply age by 10 and we passed it that number. So when you call it here, what it means is that you're not calling the number. Suppose you entered the number 5, but rather you're not calling that number, but you're calling the position where that number is held. And here, this is the method we will use to multiply this age by 10. Age is equals to age multiplied by 10. Alternatively, you can write it this way, simplified method. Alright, let's break it down. In the main function where the program execution begins, we have the declaration of the integer variable named user age to store the user's age. And then here user input, we prompt the user to enter the age. And then we have the function call multiply age by 10, where we have the user age inside the parentheses. And then we output the results after the function call, showing the user's age multiplied by 10. We have a function called multiply by 10 that takes an integer reference as a parameter. This means that any changes made to the parameter inside of this function, it will directly affect the original variable outside of the function, because it's actually holding the position address of where that original is stored. Now let's run the code and see what happens. Great. Let's show another number. Exactly what we expected, right? Now let's move on to call by value. We will just remove this and sign. Simple changes here, folks. We are passing the age by value instead of by reference. This means that a copy of the variable is made and any changes made to the function won't affect the original variable inside. Simply said, we are declaring another variable called this age. Remember, in the main function there's another variable which is being declared, so whatever that is being stored here is being stored on the separate variable, and the one in the main function is being stored on that original variable. In this case, the function multiply age by 10 operates on a copy of user age. So any changes made to this age inside the function, they won't be reflected back to the user age in the main function. especially because we did not return this new value back to the main function. it's a void function. Okay, we'll explain that part later in the next example. Therefore, when you print user age after calling the function, it will remain unchanged. Let's run this code and see what happens compared to the first example. Folks, our age is not multiplied by 10. Why? Because inside this function, we're only modifying a copy of this age, not the original variable inside the main function. These are two separate variables, two separate declarations of variables. There you have it, call by reference versus called by value in the function. And if you want to multiply the age by 10 in a separate function without calling by reference, that is still possible. We can achieve this by returning the modified value from the function and then assigning it back to the user age variable in the main function. If you did see the videos we did on value returning functions, this should be easy for you. And here's how you can modify the code. Instead of having it as a void function, you will have it as a value returning function. This is to ensure that whatever value that is being obtained from this function will be returned back to the main function, and then we can return it here. Alternately, you can return it from this assignment statement, or you can create a separate return statement of the same age. And from the main function, you can assign the results back to the user age. In this modified version, the multiply by age function takes the age as the parameter and multiplies it by 10, and then it returns the results. In the main function, the returned value is now assigned back to the user age variable. This way, the age is effectively multiplied by 10 without using call by reference. In call by reference, you pass the variable itself, or more accurately, the reference to the variable to the function. This means any changes made to the variable inside the function will directly affect the original variable in the calling function. So there's no need to reassign the modified value back to the variable in the calling function, because the modifications are reflected in the original variable itself. Now, what benefits would we have here? We'd have efficiency. You're passing the reference. Passing by reference avoids the overhead of making multiple copies of the variable or the entire object if you're dealing with objects and functions and classes. And secondly, you're saving up on memory, since only a reference to the original data is passed rather than the copy. Call by reference conserves memory, especially for large data structures or arrays. Overall, call by reference is a very powerful structure in C++ that enables efficient and flexible manipulations of data, especially in scenarios where passing large objects or modifying original data is necessary. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe for more content. Till next time, happy coding.